Thanks for joining us on this episode of Gwissues. Today we're going to talk about online love versus, I guess we would call it offline love. Chase Whiteside, you're a filmmaker who's studied the online world quite extensively. What are sort of the top line things that you have understood from your research?
Well, I guess my research has mostly come from being users of a lot of these online services for gay matchmaking and gay dating. You know, I know because people think, you know, I'm a young 20-something that I'm going to have mostly praise for a lot of these digital services. But I am someone who sort of views them a little skeptically. So I think that services like Grindr or Okcupid or Adam for Adam or any number of these other services, which essentially have the same thing, somewhat take away from I think that there are good and bad things, as with any technological change, but I think they take away from a lot of the things that we used to experience when we met people in the flesh one-on-one.
Let me ask you a question. You just lumped together things like Grindr and Okcupid.
Right.
Grindr I think of more as a hookup or a sex site. Okcupid I look at more as a site where you might find a partner. Is it fair to lump them together?
Well, I have to disagree with you. I think that most people who are using Grindr use it in different ways, and that they're not all using it as a sex hookup services. I know that people put their faces and their names up there and use it to make friends. I've actually used it to get someone to jump a car for me. So I don't think it's necessarily
as
only a
opposed
hookup
to jumping your bones. That's good. You can do all sorts of things. Dr. Mike Dow, you're a practicing psychologist, and I'm sure you see a number of patients who are looking for love. Do you think these online sites help or hurt their efforts?
You know, I always help people determine that fine line between using technology and abusing technology. You know, as a sex therapist, I've treated a lot of sex addicts because in my practice, Grindr are much more prone to sex addiction than the ones who tend to use the other more family-friendly sites like Okcupid or you know, Twitter or Facebook.
Tammy Shaklee, you're a professional matchmaker, and let me ask you, do you use a lot of technology in your searches for people?
I do use it, and that's an interesting question, because when I get an inquiry through our website of someone that says they're looking for a long-term relationship, I immediately go online and look them up before I call them back. And I'm surprised by the lack of security settings that professional gay men have. If they're online at all, it seems like the settings aren't just for the close friends and family, it's for the world to see. And oftentimes I coach them that that's the first thing that they need to do is let's start making your relationship life private, and let's start focusing, instead of the masses, let's focus on others that are looking for a long-term relationship just like you.
Do they really want long-term relationships, or are they really looking to hook up, I guess is my question.
To hire a professional matchmaker and have me in your business every day, you really are committed to looking for love. And what I find so interesting in the men that I interview is that they've had a long-term relationship before. They thrived in that environment, they miss it, and they want that again. So yes, they can date, and yes, they're good at dating.
So they tend to be older, the guys you would...
You'd be surprised. It's really, to me, about their spirit or their soul, where they are in the world. And sometimes they're 28 years old saying, I had a 5-year relationship, I want that again. Sometimes they'll say, I've had a 37-year relationship that just ended, and now I don't know how to date. Help me.
You know, I find when I meet people of a certain age, if I meet people over 40 who've never had a relationship longer than a year, I think either they just don't want a relationship or don't know how to have a relationship. Would you agree with that?
But what I would say to that is we do interview men and ask, are you wanting a long-term relationship? And if so, why? And there are so many men that will say, you know, I'm happy with what I have going on. This habitual dating or hooking up or having just a group of guys that I run around with makes me happy, and I don't want to change things. And we encourage them, do what makes you happy.
Chase?
I think there's a disconnect between what people want and sort of what these services sometimes offer. So I think a lot of people, they do want long-term relationships, or they do at least want something not as fleeting as they might end up with a service like Grindr. But services like Grindr and Adam for Adam, they're perpetually renewing sources of possibility, right? So why settle with one person when you could always just pick another person in the grid? And so it's become easier today to frankly, get a blowjob than it is to order a pizza. And so I think that makes it harder for people to decide.
You say that like it's a bad thing, Chase. I don't know.
Well, I think it is for people who are, in terms of what they want on a Wednesday night, may not be what brings them happiness over the long term. And so if every night you can quite easily pick someone new, then you might do that. But does it add up to something more fulfilling and meaningful for you? Maybe not.
And what we know about the psychology of choice is that when people have more options, they're actually less happy. So this whole Walmart philosophy of finding men, I think, is actually contributing, instead of more happiness and choice, is probably contributing to a lack of not being fulfilled in relationships.
Exactly.
I have a very dear friend who's in his early 50s, just got out of a long-term relationship, and joined, I believe, Match.com, and he started going out with people. And he kept coming back and saying, these guys are professional daters and they're damaged. How does someone like that really sort through and find that diamond in the rough, if you will, and not just a guy who thinks he's looking for love but may not be capable?
I'll answer that. As a professional matchmaker, I'll tell you, we interview based on their family history, their background, where they've lived, what their careers have been. Then we look at where they are today, all that led to the person that they are today, and also talking about what they want in their future. Do they want to live where they're living? Do they want to stay in the same industry or career? Or do they have dreams and goals of being on the coast? And we try to match people based on those details. It's so much more than a picture, a snapshot, or even a naked torso photo.
Tammy, your best advice for someone looking for love, what would you tell them, besides hiring you?
I tell them to be honest and to have these conversations, whether it's with their loved ones, their best friends, their closest friends, either colleagues at work. If they're truly seeking a long-term relationship, saying that out loud will start to define the type of people that others are looking for you. So it's not just I'm looking for a date for Valentine's. It's like I really want to celebrate my next promotion, or I want someone by my side next time my mother goes through another round of chemo. So we really talk about the long-term relationship, who and what we're looking for, and start talking that talk, and it's okay.
Chase, any advice for someone looking for your love, or advice you might give yourself as you're out there in the dating world?
Well, I just think that we should take a step back and look at these services that we're using to meet up and realize that they have limitations, that they encourage certain kinds of things that meeting in real life don't. To give for instance, on a service like Grindr, you get one photograph and like 140 characters of text to appeal to someone. If that isn't good enough, then they sort you out. And so it leads to people sort of viewing or sorting people almost pornographically, like objects. And so you may say, oh, this person is an inch too tall, he's not quite the exact race I was looking for, maybe he's a couple miles outside the grid. Whereas in real life, you might be surprised to find that human attraction has a lot more complexities, and you would be attracted to someone you might not have been. And so we're people, we're not online profiles, we're not cell phones. And so my advice would be for people to, keep their heads up and their eyes open in real life, and that maybe they have better luck meeting someone there. But it's tough because you go to bars now and all the kids have their heads down, in their Grindr app.
It's true. And finally, Dr. Mike Dow of That Sex Show on Logo. For people looking for love, what are you going to tell them? And I just want to add one aside to you, Chase. As a guy who's about to be 57, I wish someone would objectify me just once in a while, but that's just my personal hope.
I think my words of advice are very simple, and that is I'm gonna take what Tammy said, which I liked, but I'm gonna take it a step further, and that is you have to pull out all the stops in your actions. So I had a guy call into That Sex Show. He was 50, sober, HIV positive in Palm Springs, and he was really feeling lonely. And, I really encourage people to do everything it takes. And I help them to say, listen, your actions have to be congruent with your words and your intentions. So you have to go to the places where you are the most likely to meet the kind of person you're looking for. While you may be able to find a long-term soulmate on Grindr, I think that's more the exception than the rule. I think if you really want a long-term fulfilling spiritual relationship, you need to be putting yourself in the places on a very, very regular basis, 3, 4, 5 times a week, whether that's an AA meeting for that guy who called in, or whether it's dinner parties or charity events, or just the gym and spin classes, hiking, whatever it is that is important to you. And people who have congruent interests, goals, education level tend to form relationships and also stay in relationships for a longer amount of time.
Great. I want to thank you guys for a really lively discussion and hopefully helpful discussion. Thanks for following us, and please don't forget to subscribe to Gwist TV.